It gives you an idea how quickly things could change. This is an example of that. What's going on in Hong Kong right now, where things turned a lot more violent earlier today. Now it's obviously a lot later there, after 1:30 in the morning, so this has dissipated somewhat. But earlier, it was getting kind of out of control. The China Learning Curve author Dan Joseph on what this could mean. Dan, very good to have you. This seemed to come out of the blue, Dan, but maybe educate you. What's going on?
Well, obviously, this is the day that Hong Kong marks the turnover from British control to Chinese control back in 1997. There have always been protests, or at least demonstrations, on this day. This year attendance was a little higher because of the recent conflict with the government about the extradition law. And then suddenly what is normally a peaceful demonstration in Hong Kong became a little bit more radicalized, which is unusual, but I think typifies kind of the tone right now in Hong Kong, where some people are really worried that China's attempts to tighten its grip have gone too far.
You know, Dan, I remember covering that 22 years ago, and I began to wonder, how long is China going to put up with this separate but equal Hong Kong? You do your own capitalist thing, we'll kind of look the other way as long as you're all good and don't cause any problems. 22 years that lasted. Now, is this a sign that maybe it's fraying, or is this all an anomaly? Cooler heads prevail? What?
But that's a good question. I think we have to keep in mind that the Hong Kong people actually won this most recent confrontation. They got most of what they wanted. The bill was pulled, perhaps not as permanently as they'd like, and maybe the leader there, Mrs. Lam, has not been held accountable the way they'd like, but they basically won. And like I said, Hong Kong's a prosperous state with the rule of law and a long history of peaceful demonstration. I do think cooler heads will prevail, but there's the chance they'll reintroduce this. There's the chance maybe a portion of the population's been radicalized a little bit more. Maybe this blows up into a bigger problem for Beijing. I doubt it, but it could.
You know, Dan, normally there's that old expression, if you give an inch, it'll take a mile. And cynically, I wonder if it applies to military types in China who worry that by suspending the extradition order that started the initial riled up crowds, that it set the stage for other demands protesters would have, like permanently getting rid of that extradition order, like getting democratic representation on the Hong Kong Council that essentially calls the shots in Hong Kong, when in fact they're political operatives out of China. They want more, and they demand more. Where's this going?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that's the calculus that the people of Hong Kong have to take into account. On the one hand, I commend them for defending their freedom. On the other hand, I'm not sure it makes sense to push Beijing too much, to give the hardliners a reason to crack down more. I'm not sure that's in the long-term interest of Hong Kong. As I said, it's a fairly prosperous place. The last few years have seen an encroachment by Beijing, but it's still a good place to live, and maybe drawing this line in the sand is enough. So I think they have to be careful. And I also think, by the way, Beijing needs to not overreact, creating another problem for them on the world stage.
Would that compel them all the more to try to score a trade deal with us, to at least get that headache out of the way, because this could be a bigger one?
Yeah, I'm not sure that these two would link too much. I mean, if you think about it, we've got Taiwan, the South China Sea, North Korea. We've got a list of issues on the foreign policy side already with Beijing. I'm not sure Hong Kong would tip that balance that much, and I'm not sure it would impact the trade talks too much. But I do think that economic conditions overall in China are pushing them towards an agreement, and hopefully that's the direction we'll move in over the next so many months. We really don't have a clear roadmap yet.
All right, Dan, thank you very, very much. Dan Joseph, the China Learning Curve author. Very good read of the region.